Hey everyone, I'm Greg Lambert with the Geek and Review, and I'm here with Nikki Shaver from Legal Technology Hub. And Nikki, I understand you're expanding some of your advisory services. You want to give us some insight on that?
We are indeed, Greg. Thank you for having me. We at Legal Tech Hub are aware of all of the complexity being faced by law firms and corporate legal departments at the moment. It's really, it's an environment where people have been overloaded. We hear a lot about burnout. People are trying to add to their teams, but sometimes there's just too much to do and you need some support. Or what we find often is that an external perspective can be really, really helpful. For example, in law firms, sometimes you might be in that moment where you're trying to drive adoption of your AI initiatives, your AI tools that you've licensed, and it's not going particularly well, and it can be hard to determine exactly why. We at Legal Tech Hub now have advisory services that allow us to come in, interview enough of your people to get a real sense of what the enablers are in your environment for AI adoption, but also what the obstacles are. And having an understanding of that from the outside then allows you to address certain cultural elements internally that you might not ever have considered relevant to driving adoption of technology or encouraging people to work in new ways or developing a culture around, change and embracing openness to new ways of working. So that's one of the advisory services we offer. We can also work with firms around broader AI strategy, developing AI policy. We run full technology selection projects. We can support fractional KM and innovation efforts and a number of other elements internally. So if you have a need internally for some external support, advisory services, don't forget that Legal Tech Hub is one of the providers out there, and you can always find us at legaltechnologyhub.com. Feel free to reach out and just find out more if you're interested.
Welcome to the Geek and Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal industry. I'm Marlene Gabauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert. This week I'm on location in Carlsbad, California. So if you hear airplanes overhead, that's me. So Marlene, the past couple of years we've talked about a lot, or we've seen a lot about law firms that are just putting out these press releases talking about all the great stuff they're doing with AI. And then this week we're seeing more with the Claude legal announcement and everyone jumping on board with that. But really,
hmm
I think we're at a phase right now where we've got to start looking at how attorneys are using this in their day-to-day practice.
Yeah, and I agree 100%, and that is exactly why we are so excited to have our guests on today. We're joined by Alex Su and Andy Chagui of Latitude. Alex is the industry's favorite legal influencer. Great video, great reels if you haven't seen them. But he's also a former Sullivan and Cromwell litigator and a federal clerk, and now he's leading revenue strategy at Latitude.
And also joining us is Andy Chagui of Latitude. He's joining us from Miami. Andy has spent 15 years on the inside as a shareholder at Carlton Fields and is handling, he was handling high stakes federal legislation litigation before moving into the new law space.
So, Andy and Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. I'm a big
Uh,
fan of the show. Been a longtime listener, so excited to be here.
So, Andy, and Alex, I want to start off for listeners who may not be familiar with what Latitude does. Can you give us the elevator ride on what the core business is, what the mission is there at Latitude? Feel free. This is a tall building, so it can be a fairly decent elevator ride.
Sure,
Let's hear this pitch. Let's hear it.
I can jump in. So Latitude. So we are a flexible legal talent company, and what does that mean? So we specialize in providing high-end attorneys who have, former big law or in-house experience or both, typically on contract engagements with both our law firm clients and also our corporate legal department clients. These are practice-specific attorneys. You can name the practice area from corporate to litigation, labor and employment, whatever it might be. They usually jump in, um, help our law firms fulfill secondment requests, for example, or they might help a law firm with leave coverage situations. They could serve as a stopgap while the firm is trying to hire FTEs, or they can even jump in and help with special or internal projects. And we help law firms of every size, from boutique firms all the way up to AmLaw 50 law firms.
Cool. Alex, you got anything to add to that pitch?
Well, I would just say that, staffing is not a new thing, but where we think we're unique is that there's a huge pool of talent that's high end, high caliber, former big law from top schools with top credentials. A lot of this is driven by demographics shifts. So, um, for many of our clients, this is something that's relatively new, but our hope is to share and spread the word about a resource that maybe in previous years has not really been tapped into. So, we occupy a very unique segment of the market. I'm excited to share more about what we focus on today.
So I'm going to tee up the next question for both of you. So Alex, you clearly have made a career out of unconventional marketing and
Every
trying
day.
to crack that code on how to convince lawyers to innovate. And Andy, you've been a shareholder at an AmLaw 200 firm for over a decade. So when, you're looking at the current market, is the surge in demand for flexible talent, is that a sign that firms have finally accepted that the traditional pyramid model is broken? Or is it more a tactical response to this current, $36 billion value gap in firm revenue? And maybe I'll say, Alex, you start first.
Yeah, I would say it's just another resource for firms. Historically, when firms needed work done, you hire a full-time employee. Now there's a move in all areas of the law, not just with firms, but certainly at corporate legal departments to hire a contingent workforce. So lawyers who work on engagements, interim in-house counsel, and that's certainly true of the law firm side. So it's simply another solution for law firms to deploy when there is need to do work. We're a big believer in pairing the right resource with the right type of work, no matter who our client is, and so that's why we're seeing a surge in our business. And yeah, I would just say it's just another tool in your tool belt.
I agree with all of that. I mean, as you know, as a former AmLaw partner, I remember back in the day, if you were busy, it was let's hire more associates, right? And so now today there are more options, and so we work with a lot of forward-thinking, innovative law firms who realize that there's a really, really highly qualified talent pool out there that they can tap into in different situations where they don't necessarily need to bring in 3 or 4 new full-time associates. There are options.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you seen any changes in terms of, um, maybe the type of title or the type of work that maybe at one point, this wasn't gonna be flexible talent, but now firms are looking at it as more flexible talent, that, they're open to that? Like, have there been changes that way that you've seen?
I think so. We have examples of firms, large firms, am law firms that are using our talent to do essentially associate counsel and even partner level work. We've gotten placements where we have someone first chairing a trial, as an example, and that's not something you would traditionally think as something you might outsource to a conventional staffing company. But I think the key point is that the caliber of talent that's available is just unprecedented. And I know Andy sees this every single day, so I'll let him kind of share more specifics.
I want to just add to that. It's like, why now? Why is there so much talent available? Is that, what's been changing?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, after COVID, certainly when remote work became so popular, I think that really kind of changed things. And with especially with what we're doing, where it's like an interim need that may not necessarily be permanent, our clients see the value in being able to tap into a pool of candidates that are highly qualified that can help them do the work for the next 3, 6, or 9 months, and they don't really need to be there face to face. Most of our attorneys come with 10 plus years of experience. So a lot of like the tasks that an associate would benefit from being like face to face with a partner who's maybe mentoring them. Our attorneys already have that experience, and then you can deploy them immediately, and they can jump right in and kind of hit the ground running.
Excellent. So Andy, when we were talking, you shared some things with me earlier with some examples where a lot of these global 50 law firms, they have all these great tools. They have the Harveys, they have co-counsels, they have specialized tools that they use, but everyone is just too busy to train, too busy to do quality assurance, too busy to learn the new things. What are you seeing? How are firms motivated to that, where they're seeing, yes, we have the great tools, but we don't necessarily have everything that we need to get these great tools up and running as well as we should and get the ROI that we're wanting.
Yeah, so you alluded to this at the beginning of our of this podcast that everyone's got the tools, they're deploying the tools, but now we need the bodies, right? Now we need the subject matter experts to help us with all of these initiatives. And so we're supporting the knowledge management and innovation teams at various big law firms because they are trying to do various things. They are trying to either roll out a new AI tool, but then they've done that and then they've gotten tremendous traction with it. And they have all the firm attorneys reaching out saying, all right, so how do we use this to come up with deposition questions, or how do I help this in my next deal? And so they don't have the resources because even though they're large law firms, the knowledge management or innovation teams are relatively small. And so a lot of
Yeah,
this work tends to ebb and flow. And so the struggle is, do we hire more FTEs as part of the team when we may not be able to keep them busy full time? Or can we lean on a company like Latitude who can help provide these subject matter experts? They can jump in and help us when things are busy, and then we can scale down if that work kind of starts to subside a little bit.
yeah,
We're helping the firms do things like market studies and practice areas, and also train internal AI tools. Our attorneys are serving as a subject matter experts themselves, training the platforms and then reviewing the output and doing quality control to make sure that the information that the AI is, you know, generating is actually accurate. So that's in a nutshell kind of some of the work that we're doing right now. Um, they had a hard time as well because they tried to staff some of these projects with their own associates, right? The
yeah,
problem with
yeah,
that, as you can imagine, yeah, is that it's not billable work, right? So the associates are prioritizing the billable work. The opportunity cost there is very high, and the associates aren't giving it the attention that it deserves. And so then leaning on us as a resource was really appealing to these law firms.
yeah, yeah. And do you think? I mean, you hear some of the firms that are giving 50 to 200 hours of compensation or billable time to learn some of these AI things. Do you think that's the way, or or, I know a lot of firms are also very reluctant to give associates billable credit time for non-billable stuff. So you see this as a good happy medium for them?
I can also share my perspective on that because I think it's a step in the right direction to offer that credit. But the practical reality is that an associate who's behind in their hours gets faced with needing to either find billable work or work on something that's extra credit that they do get some credit for. I think what
Yeah,
you end up finding is that a lot of the associates choose the billable work. And, we're seeing just a lot of demand for firms to supplement for these roles, which suggests to me that even though I'm certain that at many of these firms, the associates get credit, the way it plays out in reality is often a little bit different. So I think it's a step in the right direction, but it can be really hard because it's just a tough spot for the associate.
yeah. And I imagine as you start placing these subject matter experts in their learning, they've got to be becoming very valuable for you to then pitch to the firm. So, I mean, it sounds like a real win for somebody that's looking to get into this type of work and has that ability and that skill set.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they can, develop the skill set and then use it across a variety of projects for a variety of customers, which,
Yeah.
I think for some people is very engaging. Um,
Yeah, if you
So
think about the point Andy made earlier about how we've seen this trend towards more of a remote workforce. People have moved around. They are comfortable with working remotely, and employers are to some extent more comfortable with remote work, even the most conservative law firms. So what happens is work that used to need to be done by a single full-time hire that maybe didn't justify a full-time person now can be almost split up. So somebody can develop an expertise in a specific area and maybe do certain types of work that wouldn't be able to be supported by a full-time role in the past, but now they can specialize in it. An example of that is, working with some of these newer AI tools, specializing in technology that hasn't been around for very long. So that is a really interesting opportunity, I think, both for the talent and for the clients.
yeah, so I want to probe that a little bit more, like in this sort of career path idea. So there are attorneys sort of coming into practice and not having the amount of jobs that there once were. There's a variety of different types of jobs for attorneys. I mean, it used to be, your career path was, you were an associate and you worked hard and then you became a partner. But now there's a whole variety of different things that you can do. Um, Also that you can be working in a role where maybe you're so good at what you do that no one feels that they can afford to lose you, and so you kind of get stymied that way. Um,
Yeah,
so
no
there's
good deed
there's
goes
there's a
unpunished. So
yeah, right?
that's right.
So there's sort of a lot of, I don't know, swirl. There's a lot of different options that people can can take, and there may be some situations where people feel kind of stunted. So, Alex, you've written about the whole being in too indispensable, and we're also talking about how the Latitude sort of engaged professional model. Basically you can become a subject expert and work on a project basis. Gives sort of more of that flexibility and more of ability to grow. So, what do you think in terms of this model that you're offering? How does that provide a career path that partnership track doesn't offer, and maybe won't offer, again, given AI's increasing importance in the practice.
I mean, it's all about flexibility because everybody, has a job, and there are things about your job that you like. There's things about your job that you don't like. Very often, the things that you don't like crowd out everything else. What Latitude offers is this flexibility for you to focus on the things that you do like. And you couldn't do it probably on a full-time basis because every job's got the things that you don't really want to do. But if you could work on an engagement basis, that opens up a lot of doors. And essentially, we're providing options that both benefit the firms we work with and the attorneys we work with, especially when it comes to specific narrow niches of work, where again, in the past, you couldn't support a full-time role with that, and now you can by putting it together. But it's a pretty good deal for the attorney too, because they get a whole set of benefits, which come with the work. I don't know, Andy, if you wanted to share some of the what the talent gets.
Yeah, I mean, so it's what we hear from our attorneys is we love working this way because we're exposed to a variety of clients, doing different things or kind of in the same practice area, but everyone's got a different style, and so it allows me to jump from a 6-month engagement to a 4-month engagement and work with different clients and really kind of like improve my skill set and get exposed to areas where I normally wouldn't have been exposed. Marlene, you mentioned there are so many other like non-traditional paths out there now, which is very true. We just had one of our attorneys who was on assignment with one of our, AmLaw 100 law firms, helping the knowledge management team with some of these AI initiatives, and the law firm ended up making a permanent offer to our attorney to come and join the firm. And we got this incredible email from our attorney saying, I am so grateful that I found you guys and that I was put on this engagement and that now I'm working for a major law firm in the knowledge management practice group, and this wasn't even on my radar. And it's a complete career pivot and something that I enjoy way more than practicing. And so there are just so many more options and so much more flexibility and ways to do things now than there used to be even when I was practicing just 6 years ago.
There's two different things that are pushing on the industry that are really kind of opposed to each other. One is there's this expectation that as AI becomes more embedded into the day-to-day practice, that there's actually going to be a need for less associates than there are for more associates. And at the exact same time, law firms are now recruiting 1L law students before they've even taken their exams. So there's got to get these law students, into the pipeline really early, because otherwise, if we wait, we're not going to get them. And now, on top of that, now in 3 years, are we going to be trying to look at, okay, now that we've got them, where are we going to put them? What are you seeing from your side of things as far as what the pressures are on law firms for hiring and potentially reducing headcount?
I think there's just so much uncertainty, Greg, and you point out the thing I've always been confused about with large law firm hiring. It's like you hire these students before they barely got their grades. We barely got our grades before when we were summers, right? Andy, you remember like when we were in school, it was like 1L grades and that's it. And the firms are making decisions on hiring and demand for different practice areas like 3-4 years in advance. So I don't know what's going to happen with AI and associates, but what I can tell you is that it's not a new thing for firms to misinterpret future demand signals. Like you have firms that overhire in certain practice areas. They've got to let people go. Then they don't have enough mid-levels in a certain practice area. And where we fit in is essentially because we have that bench of experienced practitioners, we help meet that supply gap for whatever practice area. Because again, these are often our talent often is not a person who's 3 or 4 years out of law school. It's someone who's probably 10 or 20 years and potentially has deeper experience, who could kind of slot in very quickly, doesn't need much oversight. So as we see more uncertainty unfold, I would expect greater demand for different resources. I don't know if maybe large law firms will change the recruiting model. But yeah, it's always perplexed me why hiring is done this way in our world.
If we change school and pulling them out from there, um, this I was like, where are we going next?
I know.
The other thing, and I heard something really interesting. I heard Jennifer Leonard talk this week, and one of the things that she mentioned and reminded me of was the pressures on law firms when it comes to hiring and reducing headcount is almost the opposite of what we see in the corporate world. And in the corporate world, they see, if they see a need for layoffs, they do that, and it's actually kind of, the stock price goes up. In law firms, it's actually seen as a weakness. And so if you lay off your right size, then all of a sudden you're seeing it's like, oh, Skadden and Kirkland, if they're laying off somebody, they must be hurting. Now's the chance to pounce. So it's kind of a weird comparison between what corporate headcount and law firm headcount, what pressures are. So I imagine that, looking at something like Latitude, where you can have that ebb and flow, and it really doesn't necessarily show up on the headcount line, right? Is that something that you're seeing as a real positive for law firms, that, hey, look, you can have your headcount here, and as demand goes up, we fill that. As demand goes down, they come back out. We reallocate them. Is that? I mean, you guys know the business better than I do, but it seems like that's a real win for the types of pressure that law firms are under.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we allow the firms to be able to have the flexibility to scale up and scale down as needed, right? As opposed to overcommitting on full-time hires. We have one law firm that has dozens of our Latitude attorneys working for the firm, helping a very busy big time rainmaker at the firm with high volume work that may last for the next 6 months or may go away unexpectedly, right? And so if the firm were to use a traditional staffing model and hire 10 new associates, who knows what things might look like 3 months down the road. So it gives them that ability to be able to scale up or down as needed.
So I'm wondering when firms are hired, clients, we're talking about what they're paying for now because I mean it used to be it's like we're paying for hours, but now I think we're sort of looking at okay, we're looking more at value and the value of the output. Lowering risk, maybe lowering risk faster, and basically, the firm's reputation to deliver results. And so I'm wondering, how this flexible talent model kind of plays into that. I mean, would there be a perception, has there been a perception in the past that maybe that's more risk, because they haven't been able to, you know, interview somebody on campus and sort of vet them that way, as opposed to, hiring somebody, using, the flexible talent model. So, yes, it will lower operational costs, but um, how do you still maintain kind of that trust, and accountability that firms are trying to promote in terms of their reputation?
I think in terms of the commercial model of a firm, there's several things happening at once that I think, Marlene, what you're pointing out is what's I find most interesting that's happening in the law firm world right now, which is the partners and the senior lawyers at the firm. I would even almost argue that they're underpriced, that they could probably go even higher because the judgment they bring to bear, their experience on these extremely high value matters is critical. Where I think there is a little bit of uncertainty is if you go downstream to, their litigation team or their M&A team. Um, what I hear from clients is that they don't have any issues paying the partner who's expensive. They have issues paying the first or second year. There is a
Yeah.
huge pool of lawyers who are doing the work under the guidance of a senior partner that I think is probably priced. There's a price misalignment with the clients. So the question becomes, well, what's the best way to complete that work? My view is that with AI and technology and flexible talent, there's a whole host of different tools you can use to support that partner. In terms of trust, the trust flows to the client with the partner. But in terms of who that work gets passed to, that is on the firm and the partner to vet. And so this is not a new concept. As you know, major litigations often hire outsourced shops to conduct first level doc review. That doesn't change the trust and accountability that that partner has to the client. And so one of my colleagues has called it outsourced leverage. That's what we provide. It's
Mm.
just another source of leverage that's not your full-time associates. It's outsourced to us. Doesn't mean that quality goes out the window. We do vet them carefully, but that's how I see this playing out. There's this big middle group of work, this middle segment of work that could probably be done in a different way than it has traditionally.
And
What?
I'm curious, like if sort of that goes to flexible talent, do you see the model, the law firm model changing? Because if you're not sort of getting the succession of um, associates that kind of move into partner level, and they're not being sort of trained in that capacity, um, sort of what happens when you have that generation sort of pass the baton?
My instinct is that the associates won't go away. It's maybe it's fewer, or maybe it stays the same and they're just set up differently. Like I remember when I was a summer associate, we started with 100 people in my summer class. I think that only one of us made partner. And so that level of attrition, I think, may change. I know that attrition is part of the model, but I do think you're right that we do, the leadership of the firms do have to think through what that future state looks like. And I don't think it's just flex talent or us. It's certainly AI, not just generative AI, but now
Absolutely.
agentic AI. And,
Mhm.
you've all seen Claude coming out with Claude for legal. So a lot of things are changing. And yeah, a lot could change.
Yeah.
Andy, I think you wanted to add?
It was just to Alex's prior point about the vetting that, it's not only does Latitude do the vetting, but our law firm clients also do their own vetting, right? So any candidate that we ever propose, we propose them to our law firm, and the law firm partner will have his or her opportunity to do their own vetting and make sure that they're comfortable with this person's qualifications, right? Before they put them on sensitive matters for their clients.
Do you also provide talent for in-house teams as well, or do you focus just on law firms?
No, we do both. We provide basically the equivalent of direct secondments to our corporate in-house legal department clients. So something that oftentimes might go to a law firm, saying we need one of your associates for the next 6 months. Those are the types of requests that we get directly,
Mm.
and so we're filling those on a weekly basis, whether it's a leave coverage, overflow work, stopgap, or internal projects. Yes, we work with lots of in-house corporate legal departments.
Yeah, and I know you've heard companies like Ford and Walmart are really putting big demands on their outside counsel to leverage AI, and kind of the underlying threat that is going on is a lot of these clients are saying, look, I'm not just your client, I'm your potential competitor as well. A lot of this stuff, if we staff it right, we can use the AI properly. We could be doing a lot of this instead of outsourcing it to you. The one, do you see companies actually pulling the trigger on that threat, or do you see that as putting just more pressure on law firms to figure out ways of staffing things right, using the technology right, and kind of uh, you know, filling the demands that their clients are going to. We see it on some of the big ones now, but I imagine that's going to go downstream pretty quickly.
I think it's both, Greg. Some companies that we talk to are explicitly telling the firms and providers that they're going to need to they need them to figure out the AI strategy, or else you can't work with them in the future. There are others that are waiting to see what's most effective. So I think that you've seen multiple different strategies across the board, but what's remained clear is that in the medium term to long term, the current model will need to change. It's just a fact of competition. The in-house lawyers are under pressure to do more with less. They've got to get more work done with a limited budget, and so they're going to need to be creative about allocating work to different providers. So what we also hear from the firms is that knowledge management, innovation teams, learning how to figure out how to use AI is just strategically critical to during this time, as we see more and more capabilities come out from all of these AI companies.
Yeah. Well, let me just pull on that just one time, Alex, because I know I saw a pretty funny post that you did on LinkedIn where you're saying that AI companies telling their law firms that AI is going to replace them, and then finding out 2 years later that the AI foundational models are replacing the AI companies. And so how do you see like the quad for legal, coming in? Um, I mean, I've done a little bit of digging in on it, and it's still pretty basic, what I'm seeing they can do, but it's scaring the crap out of everybody. What do you see as like a Claude for legal, or I imagine OpenAI, and maybe even Grok? Well, I've even heard Grok say that they, you can use it for legal as well. So as these tools become more advanced and push into legal, how do you see the market reacting to that?
My instinct is to say that it's going to start in-house before law firms, because law firms do more bespoke work. You've got in-house teams that are working on NDA reviews, simple contract reviews. I think the foundational models in the AI companies are going to start there. It's much easier to do. It's much harder to replace what a large firm can provide for the client. But as they move up the value chain, as they get better at reviewing contracts, these AI companies, you're going to start to see different elements of what firms do um, be potentially replaced. So, for example, maybe reviewing NDAs and sales contracts means that there is another way to conduct M&A due diligence. So if I were at a law firm, I would be watching what's happening on the in-house side with the foundational models, with all of the new AI companies, and kind of seeing where the puck is headed. Because even though it's not here today, that probably will plant the seeds of tomorrow's innovation. And there, I think the law firms probably want to be more worried about than less.
Curious for you, there's just so much going on right now, and you're kind of in this really interesting niche part of the market. So what resources do you go to kind of keep up with the changes in the market and, kind of keep as much as you can keep ahead of what's going on?
Yeah, so for me personally, I guess I would say I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit, and I feel like LinkedIn is really helpful because people will post things on there, and then if it's something that I think is interesting, I'll click on the link, and next thing I know, I'm going down that rabbit hole, right? I'm reading all
Yeah,
about that specific topic. So I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit and reading articles and things that get posted on there, and then I'm also on the phone with clients every single day, right? Having these kinds of conversations, whether it's with a GC of a Fortune 500 company or an AmLaw 50 law firm partner, and kind of just keeping my finger on the pulse in terms of having those daily conversations and seeing how they're thinking of things and what their concerns are and how they're potential solutions that they're thinking about and how we can help them with that. And then
yeah,
also I have 15 partners of the company who are having those same conversations with their own clients. And so we speak to each other, on a weekly basis and kind of just make sure that we're on top of what's going on.
yeah. I like to see how that Slack channel looks when you guys are sharing all this stuff. Yeah, do you have AI in your Slack channel? That's what I want to know. Um,
So,
Alex, how about
guys,
how
it's
about you? Oh, wait a
oh,
minute. I want to see where Alex is getting keeping up with his things as well. Alex, how about you?
Well, my primary source of information is, of course, the Geek in Review.
Of
That's where
course.
I get all my cutting edge
Thank
news.
you,
Obviously,
Alex. You missed the cue
not a
on
paid
that one.
promotion.
Yeah, and TikTok.
and TikTok.
And TikTok.
But seriously, I do read quite a bit on some of the trade publications and on certain Substacks. I would say there's a few good ones out there, but really what I always worry about is that when I read things in Bloomberg or ALM, I don't know if it's tied to reality. So very often I am talking to our 15 partners. I am talking to Andy saying, hey, I think this thing is happening. I think they're talking about AI. I mean, what do you think? And so Andy and the other partners at Latitude will kind of give me anecdotes, will tell us like, hey, this is the conversation we've had with a GC or a law firm partner this week. And so that helps me get a sense of where everything is moving. So it's a little bit of everything and talking to everyone.
Yeah,
Very good.
I
Yeah,
think that's good
insider
advice.
conversations. Those are always the best. You
Those
get it
always
from
the
the
Yeah.
best.
source. uh, all right, guys, it is time for the crystal ball question. So, this is basically where we ask you, to look ahead a few months to a few years in terms of what impactful changes that you see happening in the legal industry. So, I will start with Andy.
Oh man.
Zing! You're up.
I don't know. I don't like making predictions. But all I can tell you is that things are definitely changing and they're changing quickly and that there are more options today than ever before. And that there's a lot of disruption in this industry. And it's a lot of fun for me personally to work with clients who are forward thinking and innovative and looking for creative solutions to problems. I think the traditional model is going to change, but I don't know exactly how. But it's changing, all the time, and I'm having fun being a part of it, but I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not good at making these predictions. Alex hopefully will have a better answer than me.
Yeah.
All right,
Well,
Alex,
as we
take us
say a
home.
lot, Yogi Berra says, predicting is very hard, especially if it's about the future. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, I would add that I think there's more uncertainty. Kind of to Andy's point, there's a lot of uncertainty. Um, I'll talk about that, and I think what won't change, which is I think that it'll be uncertain what AI's true capabilities are. We're seeing new capabilities every day. I think the impact to how legal department staff, and that includes full-time hiring, but also how they leverage providers and outside counsel. I think that's highly uncertain. But what I feel most strongly about is that hourly rates will continue their march upwards. I think that clients are willing to pay when it's worth it. And the partners at the firms that they're paying exorbitant amounts for, they are certainly more than worth it. I think that
Mhm.
gets lost among the AI discourse. So I thought that I should point that out, that um, it's not just a memo that the most senior partners at these firms are putting out. They are providing legitimate, valuable guidance, and so that's not going to change. Um, so even though there's a lot of AI change, I don't know that the hourly rate of the top partners will go down.
Mhm.
You're speaking their language. They're gonna love to hear. If they heard nothing, they will hear that. So, um,
Like what Alex said.
well, Alex and Andy, I want to thank you guys both for coming in on the show. It's been a pleasure. I've been wanting to have you on for a long time, so
Mhm.
it's great sometimes to meet your heroes. So thanks for coming on, guys.
Likewise,
Likewise.
likewise. Thanks for having us.
Thank you guys. Appreciate the time.
And thanks to all of you for listening to the Geek in Review. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a colleague.
And Andy and Alex, if people want to learn more about Latitude or reach out to you guys, where's the best place to do that?
For me, it'll be LinkedIn, but I would also encourage everyone to check out latitudelegal.com. That's our website. You can find our bios there, but also see what we offer.
All right.
Likewise, LinkedIn or feel free to check out the website, and you can email me at any time.
And everybody, please remember to like and subscribe. And as always, the music you hear is from Jerry David DeSica. Thank you, Jerry, and goodbye, everybody.